Welcome, gentle dreamer, to a place where the stars shine softly over distant lands, where moonlight spills across marble palaces like liquid silver, and where love moves through the world as quietly as a whisper on the wind. Tonight, let all the brightness of the day fade gently away. Let your shoulders soften, your breathing slow to its natural rhythm, deep and easy and calm. Feel the weight of your body resting, supported completely, safe and warm. There is nowhere you need to be, nothing you need to do. This moment is yours alone, wrapped in peace. The story we share tonight comes from the ancient East, from a time when merchants carried tales along silk roads, when caravans crossed deserts under endless skies, and when magic lived as naturally in the world as rain and sunshine. It is a story whispered in palace gardens, told beneath date palms, passed from one generation to the next like a precious jewel. It speaks of two hearts, separated by distance, drawn together by destiny, and bound by a love that transcends kingdoms and seas. Let yourself settle more deeply now. Feel your breathing, gentle and rhythmic, like waves upon a distant shore. In and out, slow and peaceful, carrying you softly toward rest. In ancient times, in lands where deserts meet the sea, there ruled a great and powerful king named Shahryar. His kingdom stretched from mountain peaks to ocean shores, and his wisdom was celebrated throughout the world. Yet for all his power and glory, King Shahryar carried a quiet sorrow in his heart. He had no son, no heir to inherit his throne, no child to bring laughter to the palace halls. The king prayed each day for this blessing. He gave generously to the poor, built fountains in dusty villages, and sought the favor of heaven with a humble heart. And in time, as the years turned gently like pages in an ancient book, his prayers were answered. A son was born. The celebration that followed was like nothing the kingdom had ever seen. Musicians filled the streets with songs of joy. Dancers swirled through the palace courtyards. The air itself seemed to shimmer with happiness. The child was named Kamar al-Zaman, which means moon of the age, for his face was beautiful as moonlight on still water, and his arrival seemed to light the kingdom with new hope. King Shahryar loved his son with the fullness of his heart. He gave the prince the finest tutors, the wisest teachers, the most patient instructors in every art and science known to humankind. Young Kamar learned to read the stars, to speak many languages, to understand the ways of justice and mercy. He studied poetry and philosophy, mathematics and music. He grew strong in body and keen in mind. But there was something else about the young prince, something that made him different from other young men of the royal court. Kamar al-Zaman loved solitude. He preferred the company of books to the chatter of courtiers. He found more peace in the palace gardens, walking alone beneath fruit trees, than in the grand halls where nobles gathered. And he had absolutely no interest in marriage. This last quality troubled King Shahryar deeply. As the years passed, and Kamar grew from a boy into a young man of extraordinary beauty and grace, the king began to speak to his son about the future. "My beloved child," the king would say, "you are the light of my life, but I grow older each day. It is time for you to take a wife, to start a family, to ensure our lineage continues." But Kamar would smile gently and bow before his father. "Honorable king," he would reply, his voice soft and respectful, "I am content as I am. The thought of marriage brings me no joy. I wish only to study, to learn, to serve you and the kingdom. Please, do not ask this of me." At first, King Shahryar was patient. He understood that young men sometimes need time to accept responsibility. But as months became years, his patience wore thin like cloth rubbed too often. He brought beautiful, noble women to the palace. He arranged meetings with daughters of neighboring kings. He described the happiness marriage could bring, the joy of children, the comfort of companionship. Still, Kamar refused, always politely, always respectfully, but firmly. The king's advisors whispered that perhaps the prince was too devoted to learning, too lost in his books and stars. Some suggested he had been bewitched. Others thought he was simply stubborn. But King Shahryar knew his son's heart was gentle and good, and this made the situation all the more difficult to understand. Finally, one evening, when the sky was the color of a ripe plum, and the first stars were appearing like diamonds scattered across silk, the king's patience came to an end. He called his son before him in the grand throne room. His voice, usually warm with love, was now edged with frustration. "Kamar al-Zaman," he said, using the prince's full name in a way that made the young man's heart sink. "I have been patient beyond measure. I have been kind and understanding. But you are my only son, and you have a duty to this kingdom. You will marry, and you will marry soon. I command it." For the first time, Kamar felt something sharp rise in his chest. Not quite anger, for he loved his father too much for that, but something close to defiance. "Father," he said, his voice trembling slightly, "I cannot marry for duty alone. My heart is not made that way. I do not wish to bring unhappiness to any woman by taking her as a wife when I have no desire for marriage. Please, I beg you, release me from this obligation." The king's face darkened like a sky before storm. "You refuse your king?" Kamar said quietly, "though it pains me to do so." The silence that followed was heavy as stone. Then King Shahryar stood, his robes rustling like wind through dry leaves. "Then you leave me no choice. If you will not accept your responsibilities, you will be confined until you come to your senses. Guards!" And so Prince Kamar al-Zaman, moon of the age, was taken to an old tower at the edge of the palace grounds. It was not a dungeon. The king loved his son too much for cruelty, but it was imprisonment nonetheless. The room was comfortable enough, with cushions and carpets, a window that looked out over gardens, and all the books the prince could wish for. But the door was locked, and guards stood watch day and night. Kamar sat by the window that first night, watching moonlight spill across the palace grounds like milk, feeling a sadness settle over him like a blanket. He did not blame his father, not really. He understood duty and responsibility, but he could not force his heart to want what it did not want. Let your own breathing deepen now, slow and gentle. Feel your body settling more completely, releasing any tension, any tightness, letting everything soften and ease. Now, dear listener, we must travel across vast distances, over mountains and deserts and seas, to another kingdom entirely. Far away, in a land where the sun seemed to shine more golden and the gardens bloomed with flowers of every color imaginable, there ruled a king named Gayur. His palace was magnificent, with fountains that sang day and night, with walls inlaid with precious stones, with gardens that seemed to have been designed by angels themselves. King Gayur, like King Shahryar, had been blessed late in life with a single child. But his child was a daughter, a girl of such extraordinary beauty that poets ran out of words trying to describe her. She was named Badoura, which means full moon, for her face shone with a radiance that seemed to come from some heavenly source. Privileged Badoura was clever beyond measure. She learned everything her tutors could teach, and then surpassed them. She could debate philosophy with scholars, discuss mathematics with astronomers, recite poetry in several languages, and play musical instruments with the skill of a master. Her mind was as beautiful as her face, and her father adored her completely. Princess Badoura, like Prince Camar, had one quality that troubled her royal parent deeply. She had no interest whatsoever in marriage. When King Gayur first suggested she meet the son of a neighboring king, Badoura laughed, not unkindly, but genuinely amused. "Father," she said, "why would I wish to marry? I am perfectly happy here with my books and my studies. I have everything I need." "But daughter," the king replied patiently, "marriage is a woman's destiny. You will have children, a household of your own, a husband to care for you." Badoura's eyes flashed with intelligence and spirit. "I do not need anyone to care for me. I can care for myself. And as for destiny, I believe we create our own." King Ghayur was taken aback. He loved his daughter's intelligence, but this was rebellion. Over the following months, he tried everything. He invited princes from distant lands to visit. He arranged elaborate feasts where young noblemen could display their accomplishments. He spoke with Badoura about duty, about family, about the natural order of things. But Badoura remained unmoved. More than that, she became vocal in her refusal. "I see no reason," she would say, "why a woman must submit her entire life to the whims of a man simply because that is tradition. I choose my own path." Her ladies-in-waiting whispered that the princess was too bold. The court officials frowned and worried, but King Ghayur simply loved his daughter and hoped she would, in time, change her mind. Time, however, only made Badoura more certain of her position. And as the months turned into years, King Ghayur's patience, like King Shahryar's in that distant kingdom, began to wear thin. Was warm and fragrant with jasmine. When the sky glowed soft pink and gold, King Ghayur summoned his daughter to his private chambers. His face was troubled, torn between love and frustration. "Badoura," he said gently, "you are the treasure of my heart. But you are also the crown princess of this realm, and you have responsibilities. Many kings have asked for your hand. You have refused them all. This cannot continue." Badoura stood before her father with quiet dignity. "I have refused because I do not love them, father. Should I marry without love?" "Love often comes after marriage," the king replied. "Respect and affection can grow between two people who commit to building a life together." "Misunderstanding." "Or," Badoura countered softly, "two people can be miserable together, trapped in a union neither truly wanted." The king's voice rose slightly, frustration breaking through his usual calm. "You speak as though you have a choice in this matter." "Don't I?" Badoura asked, her own voice remaining quiet but firm. The room fell silent. Outside, evening birds sang their gentle songs. Inside, a father and daughter who loved each other deeply found themselves at an impasse neither knew how to cross. Finally, King Ghayur spoke, and his words were heavy with sorrow. "If you will not choose willingly, then I must choose for you. You will be confined to your chambers until you come to a proper understanding of your duties." Tears filled Badoura's eyes, not from fear, but from sadness. "Father," "I am sorry, my daughter, but you leave me no alternative." And so Princess Badoura, full moon, was taken to a tower chamber, not a prison, for her father loved her too dearly for harshness, but a confinement nonetheless. The room was beautiful, filled with silks and cushions, books and musical instruments, a window overlooking gardens where peacocks wandered freely. But the door was locked, and guards stood watch at all hours. Badoura sat by her window that first night, looking out at stars, beginning to appear in the darkening sky, feeling a loneliness settle around her like a cloak. She understood her father's concerns. She knew duty and responsibility were important, but she could not force her heart to want what it did not want. The night deepened around both towers, in two kingdoms separated by vast distances. Neither Kamar nor Badoura knew of the other's existence. Neither could imagine that, at that very moment, someone in the world was experiencing exactly the same struggle, the same sadness, the same quiet determination to be true to themselves. But fate, dear listener, works in mysterious ways, and sometimes, in the deepest darkness, the brightest lights begin to shine. Let your breathing flow easily now, gentle and calm. Feel your body completely supported, safe and warm, drifting on waves of peace. High above both kingdoms, far beyond the reach of earthly concerns, beings of light and air went about their nightly business. These were the jinn, creatures of smokeless fire, invisible to mortal eyes, who moved through the world like wind through trees. One such jinni, a female spirit named Maimuna, was flying across the night sky when she happened to pass over King Gayur's palace. Something drew her attention downward, a glimmer of sadness perhaps, or simply curiosity. She descended like a falling star and peered through the window of the tower where Princess Badoura sat. What Maimuna saw made her catch her breath, if such beings can be said to breathe. The princess was sitting in moonlight, her face turned toward the stars, and her beauty was so extraordinary that even a jinni, who had seen countless wonders, was struck with amazement. "How strange," Maimuna whispered to herself, her voice like wind chimes on a gentle breeze, "that such a beautiful creature should look so sad. Why would they imprison her in this tower?" She listened as the guards outside spoke quietly to each other, and learned the story of Princess Badoura's refusal to marry, of her father's frustration, of her confinement. Maimuna felt sympathy stir in her ancient heart. "Poor child," she murmured, "to be punished for knowing your own mind." The jinni was about to fly away when another presence approached through the night air. It was Danash, a powerful male jinni, descending from the opposite direction. "Maimuna," he called out in greeting, "what brings you to pause your flight?" "Come and see," she replied, gesturing toward the window. Danash looked inside and saw Princess Badoura in the moonlight. He too was struck by her beauty, and when Maimuna explained the situation, he nodded thoughtfully. "A tragedy indeed," he said, "but I have just come from a kingdom equally far away, where I witnessed something remarkably similar." "Oh?" Maimuna's interest was piqued. "Yes," Danash continued, "a prince named Kamar al-Zaman, imprisoned in a tower by his father for refusing to marry. The young man is as handsome as this princess is beautiful, and his situation mirrors hers exactly." The two jinn looked at each other as the same thought occurred to both of them simultaneously. "How far is this prince's kingdom from here?" Maimuna asked. "Many weeks of mortal travel," Danash replied, "across mountains and deserts and seas. They will never meet through any natural means." "Confiscated, but we," Maimuna said slowly, a smile playing across her ethereal features, "are not bound by natural means." "What are you suggesting?" "A test," Maimuna said. "Let us bring the prince here, to this very tower, while both he and the princess sleep. We will place them side by side and see which one is more beautiful. Then we will know which kingdom has been blessed with the greater treasure." Danash laughed, the sound like distant thunder. "Agreed. I will fetch Prince Camar immediately." And with that, the male jinni vanished like smoke in wind, traveling faster than thought across mountains and valleys, over rivers and plains, until he reached King Shahryar's palace. He found Prince Kamar sleeping fitfully in his tower room, moonlight streaming across his face, and gathered the young man up as easily as one might lift a feather. Through the night sky they flew, prince and jinni, crossing the vast distances between kingdoms in mere moments. When they arrived back at Princess Badoura's tower, Maimuna had already used her powers to ensure the princess slept deeply, peacefully, her breathing slow and even. The two jinn carefully placed Prince Kamar on the cushions beside Princess Badoura, arranging them so they lay face to face, close enough that their breath mingled in the air between them. Then the jinn stepped back to observe their handiwork, and both fell silent with wonder. In the soft silver moonlight that poured through the window, prince and princess lay sleeping peacefully. And they were, without question, the two most beautiful human beings either jinni had ever seen. More than that, they seemed perfectly matched, as though fate itself had designed them for each other, two halves of one whole. "I cannot say which is more beautiful," Maimuna whispered. "Nor can I," Danash admitted. "They are equal in every way." "Then let us wake them," Maimuna suggested. "Let us see what happens when they behold each other." But the jinn decided to be subtle about it. Instead of waking both at once, they would let each wake naturally, one after the other, to see their reactions. Prince Camar stirred first. His eyes opened slowly, adjusting to the moonlight, expecting to see the familiar walls of his tower prison. Instead, his gaze fell upon the face of Princess Badoura sleeping beside him. He caught his breath. Never in all his days, in all his studies and travels through the palace grounds, in all the times his father had brought noble ladies before him, had Kamar seen such beauty. It was not merely her features, perfect though they were. It was something deeper, a quality of spirit that seemed to shine through her sleeping face, a brightness that made his heart stir in ways he had never experienced. "Who is this?" he whispered, barely breathing. "How did she come to be here? Is she real, or am I dreaming?" He reached out slowly, hesitantly, and with the gentlest touch imaginable, brushed a strand of dark hair from her forehead. The princess did not wake, but sighed softly in her sleep, and that small sound went through Kamar like a silver arrow. In that moment, something transformed within the young prince. The heart that had remained unmoved by every beautiful face, every charming personality, every reasonable argument for marriage, that stubborn, independent heart suddenly understood what love meant. "I was wrong," Kamar breathed, his voice full of wonder. "I thought I wanted solitude. I thought I needed no one. But here, now, looking at her face, I understand that I was waiting for this moment, for this person, for this feeling." He wanted desperately to wake her, to speak with her, to learn everything about her. But something held him back, some understanding that this moment was too precious, too fragile to disturb. Instead, he carefully removed a ring from his finger, a ring his father had given him on his 16th birthday, and gently, carefully, slipped it onto the princess's hand. It fit perfectly, as though made for her. Then, overcome with emotions he could not name, Prince Kamar closed his eyes, and in his state of wonder and exhaustion, he fell back into deep sleep. The jinn watched all this with great interest, exchanging glances that spoke volumes. Now Maimuna used her powers to ensure Kamar slept soundly, and allowed Princess Badoura to wake. The princess's eyes opened slowly. She blinked, confused, for the moonlight seemed brighter than before, and there was a presence beside her that should not have been there. She turned her head and saw Prince Kamar sleeping peacefully next to her. Time seemed to stop. Badoura had seen many young men in her life. Her father had paraded countless princes and nobles before her, each trying to win her favor with fine words and grand gestures. She had remained unimpressed, unmoved, certain that marriage could offer her nothing she needed. But now, looking at the sleeping face of Prince Kamar in the moonlight, something shifted in the very foundation of her being. His beauty struck her first, features so perfectly formed they might have been carved by a master sculptor. But it was more than physical appearance. There was something in his face, even in sleep, that spoke of intelligence and gentleness, of depth and kindness. She felt inexplicably that she could spend a lifetime looking at that face and never grow tired of it. "Who is he?" she whispered to the empty room. "How did he come here? Am I dreaming? Or has heaven answered a prayer I didn't know I was making?" She noticed her father's guards had not raised an alarm, that no one seemed aware of this impossible visitor. Perhaps, she thought, this truly was a dream. But if so, it was the most vivid, most affecting dream she had ever experienced. Badoura reached out with a trembling hand and gently touched the prince's cheek. His skin was warm, real, alive. He did not wake, but smiled slightly in his sleep, and that small smile broke something open inside her. A wall she hadn't known she'd built, a defense she no longer wanted. "I was wrong," she breathed, tears gathering in her eyes. "All this time, I thought marriage was about duty and obligation, about submitting to someone else's will. But looking at you, I understand now. This is what I was waiting for. Not duty, but this feeling. You." She wanted to wake him, to speak with him, to hear his voice and learn his name. but something about his peaceful sleep held her back. Instead, she noticed a ring on his finger, a beautiful piece worked in gold and precious stones. Carefully, tenderly, she drew it from his hand and placed it on her own finger. It fit as though destiny itself had sized it. Then, Princess Badoura, overwhelmed by feelings she had never imagined she could experience, lay back down beside the prince. She gazed at his sleeping face until her own eyes grew heavy. And with his image filling her mind and heart, she drifted back into sleep. The two jinn observed all this with expressions of deep satisfaction and something like tenderness. "I have never seen such a thing," Maimuna said softly. "Each has fallen in love with the other at first sight, without words, without courtship, purely from recognition of their matching souls." "They are meant for each other," Danash agreed. "But they are separated by vast distances, by different kingdoms, by circumstances neither can control." "What will happen now?" Maimuna said. "We return the prince to his tower. When they wake and find the other gone, they will think it was a dream. But the rings will prove otherwise. And love, once planted, grows in ways that cannot be predicted." And so Danash carefully gathered the sleeping Prince Kamar and flew with him back across the vast distances to King Shahryar's kingdom. He placed the prince gently back in his tower room, arranged exactly as he had been before, and then vanished into the night air like mist before sunrise. When morning came, sunlight warm and golden, Prince Kamar opened his eyes. For a moment, he lay still, remembering. The beautiful face in moonlight, the feeling that had rushed through him like a river breaking through a dam, the wonder and certainty that he had found what his heart had been seeking. He sat up quickly, looking around. The tower room was empty. The cushions beside him showed no sign of anyone having been there. Morning birds sang outside his window, and guards could be heard changing shifts beyond his door. "A dream," Kamar whispered, his heart sinking like a stone in deep water. It was only a dream. But then he looked down at his hand and saw his father's ring was missing. And on his other hand, where no ring had been before, there gleamed a delicate band worked in gold and jewels, sized perfectly for his finger but clearly made for a woman. His breath caught. Not a dream. Real! She was real! At exactly the same moment, in her tower chamber far away, Princess Badoura was making the same discovery. She had woken hoping to see the handsome prince still beside her, but found only empty cushions and morning light. Disappointment had crashed over her like a wave. But then she saw the ring on her finger, his ring, and understood that what had passed between them had been real. Let your breathing deepen now, gentle listener. Feel yourself drifting, floating on currents of peace, safe and supported, moving toward rest. The days that followed were difficult for both prince and princess. Each was consumed with thoughts of the other. Each spent hours gazing at the ring they now wore, turning it slowly, catching light in its precious stones, trying to understand what had happened and what it meant. Prince Camar called out to his guards. "Please," he said, his voice urgent, "I must speak with my father. Tell him I will agree to anything he asks, but I must see him immediately." The message was carried to King Shahryar, who came quickly, hope rising in his heart. Perhaps his son had finally come to his senses. "Father," Kamar said the moment the king entered, "I am ready to marry." King Shahryar's face lit with joy. "My son, I am so pleased." "But," Kamar interrupted gently, "I will only marry one woman. I do not know her name or where she is from, but I know she exists because I have her ring." He held up his hand, showing the delicate golden band. "Father, you must find her. Send messengers to every kingdom. Search the entire world if you must. I will marry her and no other." The king's joy turned to confusion, then to frustration. "Kamar, where did you get that ring? What are you talking about?" The prince tried to explain, but how could he describe something he himself did not understand? The king thought his son had gone mad. The royal physicians were called. They examined Kamar, tried various remedies, but the prince remained firm in his conviction. She is real, he insisted, and I will find her. Many hundreds of miles away, Princess Badoura was having an almost identical conversation with her father. She too had declared her willingness to marry, but only the young man whose ring she now wore. She too held up the golden band as proof. She too faced disbelief and concern. Ayur said gently, "You have been under great strain. Perhaps you dreamed—" "It was not a dream." Badoura's voice was passionate, certain. "He was here, father. I saw him as clearly as I see you now, and I love him. I will marry him and no other." The king, like King Shahryar, feared his child had lost balance of mind. He consulted physicians and holy men, but nothing could shake Badoura's certainty. Days turned into weeks. Both Kamar and Badoura grew thinner, paler, consumed by longing for someone they had seen only once, in moonlight, in silence. They barely ate. They could not sleep except in brief, restless intervals. They spent hours at their windows, gazing out at the world, wondering where the other was, how to find them. Their respective fathers grew increasingly worried. The physicians said the young people were suffering from love sickness, but how could they be cured when the object of their affection could not be found? King Shahryar finally decided to take action. If his son was determined to find this mysterious woman, then perhaps traveling would restore his health, even if the search proved fruitless. He sent messengers to Kamar's tower with an announcement. "My son," the message read, "I give you leave to search for this woman you saw. I will provide you with ships, provisions, and companions. Travel where you will, and may heaven guide you to your heart's desire, or at least restore your health." Prince Camar felt hope kindle in his chest like a small flame. He prepared to leave immediately, gathering supplies, studying maps, planning routes. His father's Grand Vizier, a wise old man who loved the prince dearly, agreed to accompany him along with a small group of loyal servants. They set sail on a beautiful ship, its white sails filling with wind like wings preparing for flight. Kamar stood at the bow, the ring on his finger catching sunlight, his eyes scanning the horizon as though he might somehow sense which direction held his destiny. At the same time, King Gayur had made a similar decision regarding his daughter. If she was determined to find this mysterious prince, then perhaps journeying would restore her spirits even if the search came to nothing. He arranged for Badoura to travel, but here's where the story takes an interesting turn, dear listener. You see, King Gayur worried about his daughter traveling through foreign lands where she might not be treated with the respect she deserved. So he made an unusual suggestion. "Daughter," he said, "if you must travel, travel disguised as a young man. It will be safer. You can move more freely, be taken more seriously, and avoid unwanted attention." Princess Badoura agreed. She dressed in fine male clothing, bound her hair back, and adopted the manner and bearing of a young prince. She was clever enough, observant enough, to carry off the disguise perfectly. And with a small group of loyal servants, she too set sail, her ship cutting through blue waters toward unknown horizons. Fate, as we said before, works in mysterious ways. And the jinn who had brought this situation about were watching with great interest to see how it would unfold. Prince Kamar's ship sailed from port to port. He showed the ring to merchants and traders, asking if anyone recognized the craftsmanship, if anyone knew which kingdom's jewelers worked in that particular style. He described the woman he had seen, her beauty, her grace, hoping someone might identify her. But weeks passed, then months, and no information came to light. The ship encountered storms. Winds blew them off course. They found themselves traveling farther and farther from any route Kamar had planned, pushed by weather and current toward destinations unknown. One night, a terrible storm struck. Lightning split the sky like silver cracks in black glass. Thunder shook the air. Waves rose higher than the ship's masts, and wind screamed through the rigging like tortured voices. In the chaos, Prince Kamar was swept overboard. He plunged into cold, dark water, tumbling beneath the surface, unable to tell which direction was up. His lungs burned. His limbs grew heavy. The ring on his finger seemed to grow warm, and he clung to consciousness by thinking of the face he had seen in moonlight, the love that had transformed his heart. Just when he thought he would drown, strong hands grabbed him. His head broke the surface. He gasped air. Through salt-stung eyes, he saw sailors pulling him toward a ship, but not his own ship, a different vessel entirely. Hauled him aboard and laid him on the deck, coughing up seawater, shivering violently. Someone wrapped a blanket around his shoulders. A kind voice asked if he was all right. When Kamar's vision cleared enough to look around, he found himself on a merchant ship captained by a woman dressed as a man, or so it seemed. The figure was slight, graceful, dressed in fine clothing that suggested nobility rather than common trade. "You're safe now," the figure said, and there was something in that voice, even disguised and roughened to sound masculine, that made Kamar's heart skip. "Thank you," he managed through chattering teeth. "My ship. Lost in the storm, I'm afraid. We saw no other survivors, though we searched. You are very fortunate." Kamar looked at this stranger who had saved him, trying to see the face clearly in the darkness and confusion of the storm's aftermath. Something felt familiar, but he was too exhausted, too overwhelmed to understand what. And Princess Badoura, for of course it was she, disguised as a young prince, traveling in search of the man she loved, looked at this bedraggled survivor and felt a strange pull in her heart, but told herself it was merely compassion for someone nearly drowned. Neither recognized the other. The moonlight had been silver and soft. Now there was only storm darkness, confusion, and exhaustion. Fate had brought them together, but they did not yet know it. Let your breathing slow even more now, gentle and easy. Feel your body growing heavier, more relaxed, sinking into peaceful rest. The storm passed. Morning came soft and golden. Badoura's ship sailed toward the nearest port to make repairs and take on provisions. Prince Camar recovered in a small cabin, his strength gradually returning, though his heart remained heavy with the loss of his companions and ship. When he was well enough, he sought out the captain who had saved him, the figure he believed to be a young foreign prince named Badour, for that was the name Badoura used in her disguise. "I owe you my life," Kamar said with deep sincerity. "How can I ever repay such a debt?" Badoura, still in her disguise, smiled. "No debt exists between us. Anyone would have done the same. But tell me, what were you doing sailing in such dangerous waters? You have the bearing of nobility." Kamar hesitated, then found himself telling the story. The imprisonment in the tower, the miraculous night when a beautiful woman appeared beside him, the ring they had exchanged, his desperate search to find her again. As he spoke, he pulled the ring from his finger to show it, the delicate golden band that proved he hadn't dreamed the entire encounter. Badoura's eyes widened. Her hand moved unconsciously to where she wore Kamar's ring on a chain beneath her disguise. "That ring," she breathed, her disguised voice cracking slightly. "Yes," Kamar said, not noticing her reaction. "It is all I have of her. I will search the world until I find her, or die trying." Badoura's mind raced. She looked at this young man, really looked at him for the first time in daylight. The face she had seen in moonlight, the features she had memorized and held in her heart. Could it be? After all these months of searching, had fate brought him to her ship? But he did not recognize her. Of course not. She was dressed as a man, her hair bound back, her manner and speech altered. And he had seen her only once, in moonlight, as herself. She made a quick decision. "That is a remarkable story," she said carefully. I may be able to help you. But first we must reach port. Will you sail with us?" "I have nowhere else to go," Kamar replied. "I accept your kindness gratefully." The ship continued its journey. Over the following days, Badoura and Kamar spent much time together. Still in her disguise, Badoura drew the prince into conversation about every topic imaginable: philosophy and poetry, mathematics and music, dreams and destinies. Kamar found himself deeply drawn to this foreign prince's mind and manner. There was something about Badour that reminded him of the woman he sought, though he couldn't identify what exactly. The way they moved, perhaps. The quality of their voice when they laughed. The intelligence in their eyes. "Firefox, you are remarkably wise for someone so young," Kamar remarked one evening as they stood at the ship's rail, watching sunset paint the sky in shades of rose and gold. Badoura smiled. "And you are remarkably persistent in your search for love. Many men would have given up by now." "I cannot give up," Kamar said simply. "When you know you found the person meant for you, giving up is impossible." Badoura's heart swelled with emotion, but she maintained her disguise. She was testing him, she realized, wanting to know him without the complication of recognition, wanting to understand the heart of the man she loved. What she found delighted her. Kamar was everything she had imagined and more, kind and thoughtful, intelligent and genuine, determined but not stubborn, gentle but not weak. Each conversation left her more certain that the love she had felt in that moonlit moment was not misplaced. But how to reveal herself? And when? The ship finally reached port in a prosperous kingdom far from either of their homelands. The city was beautiful, with markets full of wonders, with architecture that seemed to reach toward heaven, with gardens where fountains sang. It happened that this kingdom had recently lost its king, and the people were searching for a new ruler. According to their ancient traditions, they would choose whoever seemed most wise and noble among the strangers who arrived during a certain holy period. When Badoura's ship docked, officials came aboard and were immediately struck by the bearing and presence of the young Prince Badour. Here was someone who spoke many languages, demonstrated knowledge of law and justice, showed qualities of leadership and mercy. "Will you be our king?" they asked Badoura. She was stunned. She looked at Kamar, who had accompanied her to the port. I cannot accept such an honor. I am merely passing through your land." But the officials were insistent, and the people, who had gathered at the docks, seemed to approve. They called out in support, pressing flowers and gifts upon this foreign noble who had come to their shore. Badoura found herself in an impossible situation. To refuse would insult the kingdom. To accept meant delaying her revelation to Kamar even longer. But perhaps, she thought, this was fate's design. "I will accept," she said finally, "if this man, Prince Camar, agrees to serve as my Grand Vizier. I will not rule without him beside me." Was surprised, but pleased. He had lost everything in the storm, his ship, his companions, his path. Perhaps this was a new beginning. And staying near this foreign prince who had saved him seemed right somehow. "I accept," Kamar agreed. And so Princess Badoura, still disguised as Prince Badour, became king of a foreign land, with Prince Kamar as her most trusted advisor. They ruled together wisely and well, the kingdom flourishing under their shared governance. Spent every day together, making decisions, hearing petitions, walking through gardens in the evening, discussing philosophy and justice. They grew closer than brothers, closer than friends. There was a bond between them that neither could name, but both felt deeply. Still, Kamar's heart remained with the memory of the woman in moonlight. He wore her ring always. And Badoura, touched by his faithfulness even as she lived beside him in disguise, wore his ring on a chain close to her heart. One evening, as they sat in the palace garden beneath stars that seemed close enough to touch, Kamar spoke of his lost love with a sadness that made Badoura's heart ache. "Sometimes I fear I will never find her," he admitted. "That she was a gift given and taken away, leaving me to search forever." Badoura could bear it no longer. This man she loved was suffering, and she was the cause, however unintentionally. "Kamar," she said softly, dropping the disguised roughness from her voice, speaking in her true tones. "What if I told you she was closer than you think?" He looked at her, confused. "What do you mean?" She stood slowly, deliberately. She unwound the cloth that bound her hair, letting it fall in dark waves around her face. She removed the outer layers of masculine clothing, revealing the feminine garments beneath. And she pulled the chain from around her neck, showing him the ring, his ring, that she had worn since that moonlit night. "Kamar," she said, her voice trembling, "it's me. I am Badoura. I am the woman you saw in moonlight. I am the one who has been searching for you just as you have been searching for me." Time seemed to stop, to understand, his mind struggling to associate, the trusted advisor. All along, it had been her. The face he had memorized in moonlight was before him now in starlight, and recognition flooded through him like sunrise. "You?" he whispered. "All this time?" "All this time," she confirmed, tears streaming down her cheeks. They stood facing each other in the garden, beneath stars and soft darkness, and something clicked into place in the universe. A rightness, a completion, like the final piece of a puzzle settling perfectly into its space. Physically, Kamar crossed the distance between them in 2 strides and took her hands in his. "You're real. You're here. I have been beside you all along without knowing." "We have been beside each other," Badoura said, smiling through her tears. "Fate brought us together not once but twice. The jinn planted love in our hearts, but we cultivated it ourselves, not knowing who the other truly was, falling in love with souls before faces." "I loved you first in moonlight," Kamar said softly. "Then I loved you as Badour, without understanding why. And now I love you as Badoura, with everything I am." "As I love you," she replied. They were married that very night, in the palace garden, under stars that seemed to shine with particular brightness. The kingdom celebrated their union with joy, for their people loved them both dearly. And somewhere high above, 2 jinn watched with satisfaction, pleased that their midnight intervention had led to such happiness. Let your breathing become even slower now, even gentler, as we near the end of our tale. Prince Camar and Princess Badoura ruled their adopted kingdom for many years, wise and just and kind. But they did not forget their original homes, their parents who had worried and grieved for them. After some time, they made journeys back to both kingdoms, first to King Shahryar, who wept with joy to see his son alive and well and married to such a remarkable woman. Then to King Gayur, who embraced his daughter with relief and happiness, grateful to meet the son-in-law who had won her heart. The 2 kingdoms formed alliances through this marriage, becoming prosperous trading partners and close friends. King Shahryar and King Gayur met several times, comparing notes on their stubborn children with rueful laughter, marveling at how fate had worked things out despite, or perhaps because of, their own failed attempts at matchmaking. And what became of Maimuna and Danash, the jinn who had started it all? They visited the couple sometimes, invisible but present, watching them rule with wisdom, raise children with love, grow old together with grace. And the jinns smiled, knowing that sometimes the greatest magic is simply bringing the right souls together and letting love do the rest. Salesforce comes to its gentle close, dear listener. Prince Kamar al-Zaman and Princess Badoura found what they were seeking, not through forcing or rushing, not through duty or obligation, but through the mysterious workings of fate and the truth of their own hearts. They learned that love cannot be commanded or scheduled. It arrives in its own time, in its own way, sometimes in moonlight, sometimes in storm-tossed seas, sometimes in the companionship of a trusted friend whose face you finally see clearly. Let this story settle over you now like a soft blanket. Feel your breathing, slow and rhythmic, gentle as waves on a distant shore, in and out, easy and natural. Your body is completely relaxed, every muscle loose and comfortable, every tension released. Your shoulders are soft, your jaw is unclenched. Your hands rest gently, palms open, receiving peace. The world around you has grown quiet and dim. Outside your window, stars are shining, the same stars that watched over Kamar and Badoura all those centuries ago. The same moon that lit their first meeting is rising now, full and bright and beautiful, spilling silver light across your room like a blessing. You are safe here, protected, surrounded by peace. Let any thoughts that remain drift away like leaves on a gentle stream. You don't need to hold on to them. They will be there tomorrow if you need them. Tonight, you need nothing but rest. Feel yourself sinking deeper into your bed, into comfort, into the welcoming arms of sleep. Your breathing is so slow now, so gentle, barely a whisper of air moving in and out. Like Prince Camar in his tower, you are learning to let go of control, to trust in the timing of things, to believe that what is meant for you will find you. Like Princess Badoura on her journey, you are discovering that sometimes the path to what we seek is winding and strange, but it leads us exactly where we need to be. Imagine yourself now in a garden at night. Stars shine overhead like diamonds scattered across dark silk. Flowers release their perfume into warm air, jasmine and rose, honeysuckle and night-blooming herbs. Somewhere nearby, a fountain plays its gentle song, water droplets catching moonlight as they fall. You are walking slowly through this garden, your feet soft on smooth paths. You feel peaceful, content, whole. There is a bench ahead, cushioned and comfortable, situated perfectly to view the moon. You sit down, sinking into softness. The night wraps around you like a cloak woven from dreams and starlight. You watch the moon, full and bright, the same moon that connects all times and places, that has watched over every sleeper since the beginning of time. Its light is gentle, non-demanding. It asks nothing of you except that you rest. Your breathing has become so slow now that you barely notice it. In and out, in and out. Like the tide, natural and eternal. Your eyelids are growing heavy, so heavy, it takes effort to keep them open. Why keep them open? There is nothing you need to see right now, nothing that requires your attention. Let them close. Darkness is soft and welcoming behind your closed eyes. You are still in the garden, still sitting on the bench, but everything has become even quieter, even more peaceful. Your body is so relaxed now that you can barely feel its weight. You are floating, drifting, suspended in a state of perfect comfort. The story of Kamar and Badoura plays gently through your mind like a lullaby. Two souls, separated by distance, brought together by magic, finding love through patience and fate. It is a beautiful story, a true story in the way that all the best stories are true, not in facts, but in meaning. Your own story, your own journey, your own loves waiting to be found, your own adventures waiting to unfold. But those can wait until tomorrow. Tonight is for rest, for restoration, for letting the day dissolve into dreams. Feel sleep approaching now like a dear friend, gentle and kind, bringing gifts of renewal and peace. You welcome it. You are ready for it. Your breathing has become almost imperceptible. Your body is completely still. Your mind is quiet as snow falling on a winter night. The garden around you is fading into soft darkness. The stars are dimming. The moon is setting. Everything is growing softer, quieter, further away. You are safe. You are loved. You are exactly where you need to be. Let go now. Let go of the day, of all its concerns and complications. Let go of planning and thinking and doing. Let go even of this story, letting it slip away like mist in morning sun. There is only sleep now, only rest, only the gentle darkness that restores and renews. Your breathing continues, slow and steady, but you barely notice it. You are drifting on currents of peace, floating on waves of calm, sinking into depths of perfect quiet. The last thought that passes through your mind is this: tomorrow is another day. Tomorrow brings new light. But tonight, you rest. Sleep now, dear listener. Sleep deeply. Sleep peacefully. You are already sleeping, or nearly sleeping. or so close to sleep that the boundary between waking and sleeping has become invisible, has dissolved, has disappeared into the gentle twilight of approaching unconsciousness. Your breath is so slow now, so deep, so peaceful. Each inhale fills you with rest. Each exhale releases you further into sleep. The rhythm lulls you, rocks you, carries you gently down, down, down into the depths where dreams wait to greet you, where rest waits to restore you, where sleep waits to renew you. You may already part of your dream. Perhaps the brass city was a dream. Perhaps everything is a dream and only sleep is real. It doesn't matter. What matters is that you rest, that you let go, that you surrender completely to this moment and this peace. Let the last threads of consciousness unspool, unravel, dissolve. Let awareness dim like a lamp running out of oil, fading gradually, gently, until only darkness remains, the healing darkness, the peaceful darkness, the blessed darkness of deep sleep. You are sleeping now, or about to sleep, or already dreaming that you are listening to these words. It's all the same, all part of the continuum of consciousness that shifts and flows between waking and sleeping, between awareness and oblivion, between day and night. The brass city is forgotten now, or remembered only as a dream remembers waking life, dimly, softly, without urgency or significance. The travelers have become dreams. The king is a wisp of thought. The warning is a whisper. Nothing remains but peace, rest, sleep. Your body lies heavy and still. Your breath flows gentle and slow. Your mind drifts in the space beyond thought, beyond word, beyond image. You are pure consciousness now, awareness without object, being without doing, existing without effort. And even that consciousness is fading, dimming, dissolving into the greater darkness of sleep. Soon there will be only dreams, or the dreamless void beyond dreams, or the deep, restorative nothingness where the body heals and the mind renews itself for another day of living. Sleeply now, completely now, totally now. Let everything go, let everything fade, let everything dissolve into the vast, peaceful, endless ocean of sleep. You are safe, you are held, you are sleeping. Sleep. Sexually. Cancel. Sleep. Withstanding. And in the last moment before consciousness disappears entirely, before you sink below the surface of awareness into the depths of true sleep, know that you are blessed. Know that you are loved. Know that you will wake refreshed, renewed, ready for tomorrow's journey. But tomorrow is far away. Now there is only sleep. Deep, peaceful, healing sleep. Sleep.